Good morning, wherever you are. We are so glad that you've joined us today. I'm Martha Sinkula, your service leader. Welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Congregation. As you know, the rapid result in increase of COVID cases was with the utmost goal of safety for all. We have decided to go back to remote services, and we're doing them from our home so that we are freeway close, but not together. So getting back to the sanctuary will occur when it's safe for everybody, for all our beloved community. In the meantime, stay in touch with others. And we're so grateful for the technology that is keeping our virtual community open. Our speaker this week is Reverend Dennis Reynolds, and he'll be available for after service Zoom. Each Sunday, sign-in begins at 11:15 and with conversation at 11:30. Look for Michael Wheeler's email with the Zoom link. Also, check out the previous services that we have. Services and discussions are on our YouTube channel. And we thank Michael Wheeler and Lucy Swangham for their work in producing these graphics and videos of services every week. We light this chalice, not because we must, but because we may. We light this chalice not because we have the truth, but because we each come bearing and seeking many truths. We light this chalice in connection across culture, distance, class, and language, and technology. That our religion may be a beacon of light, hope, and justice. We light this chalice to kindle our hearts and our minds. Our reading this morning is from the Nobel Prize winning poet, Bob Dylan. Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. It's your time to you is worth saving. Then you'd better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pens, and keep your eyes open. The chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon. The wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. Oh, the loser will be later to win. for the times they are a-changing. Come, senators and congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway. Don't block in the hall. Up, for he that gets hurt will be her that has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. Soon shake your windows and rattle your hall, for the times they are a-changing. Come, mothers and fathers all over this land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old role is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend a hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one will later be the last, be fast, and the present now will soon be the past. The order is rapidly last, for the times they are a-changing. Reverend Dennis came to the ministry after a 30-year career as a preschool teacher and an administrator at the University of Oregon. He has since retired to Eugene, and after serving churches in Oregon and Washington State as a hospital chaplain, he's been an activist both locally and globally. Reverend Dennis believes that the most powerful sermons are often those written with a religious text in one hand and a current news source in the other. He enjoys lifelong learning, and in the practice of crafting sermons. Our congregation enjoys his wisdom and wit and his ability to share his authentic self with us. Dennis?
I invite you now into a time of contemplation and meditation. For our meditative time this morning, I'd like to first share a prayer. It's from Norman Fisher's Everyday Zen. It's written by Cynthia Schrager. And after the words of this prayer, I invite you into a time of shared silence, which I will begin and end with a chime. Prayer for a divided nation. Blessings on the red states and the blue states and the purple states, and on the people of the red, blue, and purple states. Blessing on the citizens and the non-citizens, the documented and the undocumented, the incarcerated, the formerly incarcerated, and the not yet incarcerated. May they be happy. May they be peaceful. May they be free. Prayers for the disenfranchised and the enfranchised and the not yet enfranchised, for the citizens who go to their polling places and the ones who vote by mail, for the ones who wait in line for hours and the ones who are dropped from the rolls. Blessings on the used to be voters and the not yet voters, and on the undecided voters, and on the ones who don't think their vote matters, and on the people who want to vote but can't. May they be honored. May they be represented. May their rights be protected. Blessings on the people who are making signs and on the people who are in the streets, and the ones who are in their study groups, and the ones who are writing letters, and the ones who are volunteering their time, and the ones who are giving of their resources. May they join together. May they learn from one another, and may they make a difference. Blessings on the people of the North and the South, and the East and the West, on the plains and the mountains and the coasts and of the swamps. Prayers for the listeners of NPR and the listeners of Fox News, for the followers of Rachel Maddow and the followers of Rush Limbaugh. May they open their hearts. May they open their minds. May they find ways to be in community and to repair the nation. For everyone within these borders and beyond these borders, may they be happy. May they be peaceful. May they be free. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free. The times, they are a changing. Reverend Bruce Bodie, who served until his retirement as the senior minister in Porttown, Washington, and was my ministerial internship supervisor, once said that when he was seeking words of deepest meaning, I as often look to the poets as I do to sacred literature. They are the prophets of our time. And so it has always been. In many faith traditions, sacred texts are expressed as poetry. The Hebrew Psalms are poetry, as are the ancient Hindu Vedas. There are, of course, the Sufi teachings passed down by the esteemed poets Hafiz and Rumi. And so it is in our times. Bodhi taught poetry classes as part of his ministry. On each of his 12-week classes, he would focus on the works of one poet. His list included Robinson Jeffers, Billy Collins, Robert Frost, and Wendell Berry. And since we are Unitarian Universalists, of course, Mary Oliver. Some have called Oliver Saint Mary of Beacon Street, which for Beacon Street Press, the Unitarian Universalist press that publishes her work. We claim her as ours, yet she was in fact an Episcopalian in her church allegiance, even though she was clearly a religious naturalist in her theological framing and her expressions of faith, of awe, and of reverence. The poet Bob Dylan was certainly a prophetic voice, as have been other folk songwriters and singers. When we read their lyrics as words, we're better able to hear the depth of those words' meanings. This is true of today's reading and other lyric poems by Bob Dylan. His Blowing in the Wind is a profound call for peace and understanding, and other songs such as Chimes of Freedom and Like a Rolling Stone are powerful poetry, penned by a then mostly young poet. In 2016, Bob Dylan became the first musician to receive a Nobel Prize in Literature. Sarah Danius, the Swedish Academy's permanent secretary, said when the award was given to Dylan, Bob Dylan writes poetry for the ear, but it's perfectly fine to read his works as poetry. His poems certainly have a prophetic power. The Times They Are A-Changing, which I asked Martha to share as today's reading, was written in 1964. Yet its words certainly speak of the realities of our times. The waters around us certainly have grown. Record-breaking floods inundated much of Northern Europe earlier in the summer. And just a few weeks ago, floods that caused scores of deaths overwhelmed much of Tennessee. This followed flooding there just last year. Two so-called 100-year floods occurred just over a year apart. Then Hurricane Ida came and hammered the Louisiana coast on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. This time the levees held and most of New Orleans was spared, though some upriver communities were devastated. The remnants of that storm swept across the land and caused more rainfall, particularly in New Jersey and in New York City, where more deaths occurred. People perished in flooded apartments, and the subway tunnels were filled with water. Drought this spring and summer, more intense winter rains are anticipated. with all the risks of mudslide that means for areas that have been burned by this summer's forest fires. Soon, we too will be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'. In the face of these profound changes in the weather, we've all witnessed and experienced, and many have written about how we might respond. All we have experienced directly was also followed this summer by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, which tells us that these weather calamities will continue. The predictors and the procrastinators and politicians have offered a wide range of responses. Here in Oregon, climate mitigation and climate response legislation was approved by our state legislature and by executive action from the governor. At the federal level, massive investments in reducing carbon and in fortifying communities are in the pipeline. Many conservative politicians who once denied climate change are realizing their previous error. Yet they seem unwilling to support significant changes lest the economy be damaged by regulation. We do know, though, that hundreds of billions of dollars of damage have been caused by the storms and droughts and the fires of recent years. Inaction will be economically and personally devastating for many. I deeply hope that all of us, consumers and politicians, will keep our eyes open, for the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, the wheel's still in spin and there's no telling who that it's naming. Oh, the loser will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing. Many of our children call us towards a more sustainable and a more inclusive world, and we're beginning to listen. The Eighth Principle Project in our Unitarian Universalist movement, which calls us to make action to deconstruct systematic racism a priority, is but one example of change that has come from younger leaders and from many who have long been on the margins. The work of diligent efforts by largely young advocates. At home in Eugene, I serve on several environmental and climate justice committees, including now serving on the City of Eugene's Sustainability Commission. I am honored in those settings to serve with some amazing young people who are working both diligently and effectively to turn things around. And I understand that my role in those places is rapidly aging. I am striving to learn when and how to get out of the way when I can't lend a hand. For the times, they are a-changing. And changes as just occur are what comes when we change to doing Zooms from home. Addressing climate change has been described as the challenge of this generation, yet in reality, these changes and addressing the intensification of divisiveness throughout our world are the work of all of us, young and old and in between. Becoming a grandparent certainly has deepened my commitment to doing what I can to help leave the world a better place, or at least one not so horribly damaged. There have been so many losses, large and small, opportunities missed and experiences deferred. This week, my grandson Jasper and his parents and I and other close friends had planned to spend time camping in an isolated site on the shores of Waldo Lake in the Cascades. Yet the threat of wildfire smoke will keep us at home. As I write this sermon and as I share with you today our recording, the air quality outside my door is unhealthy for Jasper, and for me. I know our losses are small. Up the nearby Mackenzie River, many lost their homes and some their lives. We hope and pray for clearer, cleaner, perhaps cloud-filled skies, and even a little bit of rain. In these tenuous times, hope is a precious commodity, not necessarily rare, but extremely precious. I read a moving article in this week's New York Times about families who lost their homes in the Alameda fire near Ashland just 1 year ago. The individuals interviewed stayed in the area because they have community there and because they have hope for a better future. You see, hope is something we can grow. In hard times. As the 19th century poet Emily Dickinson described it, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. And never stops at all. Hope stays alive and is fed by what we do, by how we behave in the midst of difficulty. It is hope that calls us to start swimming rather than to simply sink like a stone. Unlike blind faith in a positive outcome, hope calls us to do what we can to bring about the best results that current realities and our diligent efforts might provide. The contemporary poet, Maya Angelou, advised that when you do nothing, you feel overwhelmed and powerless. But when you get involved, you feel the sense of hope and accomplishment that comes from knowing that you are working to make things better. These are indeed difficult times. To deny that or to turn away serves no one, and least of all ourselves. Buddhist teachings urge us not to become overly attached to either the good times or the dark times, but rather to acknowledge honestly what is, especially when that reality shows us yet again the perils and the impermanence of our being. I'm reminded of one of my favorite Western haikus. It's from the poet Gary Snyder. I may have shared it with you before. Snyder wrote, "This dewdrop world is but a dewdrop world, and yet. Those two small words are key. In the midst of a clear recognition of troubled times, we look within and we look to each other and we find hope. We find grounding. We are grounded in our shared aspirations towards positive change, and grounded in our own faith tradition that reminds us of the inherent worth and dignity of all, and of our small yet integral place in the interdependent web of all existence. Here in a community, as each of us in our own way, from our own place, in online workshops and worship and conversations, and in contemplations, we ground ourselves. We gather on Sunday, be it in person or via Zoom, to take some Sabbath time. Connections and to fortify our hope. In so doing, our spirits are strengthened and our ability to not merely survive, but to thrive is enhanced. We will face the realities of these changing times. And because we come together, we will be better able to face whatever may come our way. I'd like to close today with the words of another poetic songwriter, John Lennon, who called upon each of us to imagine what the world might someday, through our efforts, become. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. May we together make it so.
Our benediction closing words are by Maureen Killoran. As we weather winds of change, may we have the wisdom to cherish moments of stillness. As we live through times of challenge and pain, may we remember also the graceful blessings of our lives. As we look to the future unknowns, may we have the boldness to trust that there is unimagined good yet to come. Amen. Blessed be. Go now in peace.